So 2020 was a pretty big year for social media marketing agencies, not only for existing agency owners with brands and companies just flocking to Facebook ads, email marketing, SEO, anything that could help them grow online during an uncertain period where a lot of physical stores had to close, but also for newcomers, seeing people just crush it with SMMA and thinking, can I do this? Should I get into this business model? Now, while it's definitely been very exciting and fun, at least for existing agency owners, it really begs the question, is SMMA still worth it? Can newcomers still come in and actually have success with SMMA? In a nutshell, can you still be successful with SMMA in 2021? That is the question that I'm going to be answering in this video, and I'm going to be breaking it down into 5 parts. Also, we're going to talk about the current landscape and the inevitable truth. Secondly, we're going to talk about the saturation illusion. Thirdly, we're going to talk about the barrier to entry Bliss. In the 4th section, I'm going to be talking about why competition is for losers. And on the final and 5th section, I'm going to be talking about SMMA 2.0. So I'm super excited for this video. We're going to cover a lot of stuff, and you're going to want to stick around till the end to really hear what you need to do to be successful in this new year. Now, if you are new to my channel, a bit about me before we start. My name is Jaime, and over the past 2 years, I've been able to grow my agency from zero with very little upfront investment to $50,000 a month profit. And that is just purely with my agency. Very important to keep in mind. So I've definitely learned a thing or two during the process. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had my wins. And what I do on this channel is share those lessons that I've learned during the actual doing, right? During the actual walking the talk with you guys for you to actually implement it and get results with your own agency. So without further ado, let's go right into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the current landscape of social media marketing agency. Now, it is no secret, right, that people are making quite a lot of money with it. And there's obviously outsiders seeing 16, 17, 21-year-olds making 20K a month, right? I've literally had it with my mentees, which is something that I do on the side as a passion project, right? I've literally had it with mentees go from zero at the age of 17, for example, Cassie, one of my students probably watching this, right? Go from 0 to 20K a month in literally 4 months, okay? And he was still in high school, right? And so a lot of outsiders have been seeing the success, and obviously they've begun to take notice. Now, if you add that to the already existing audience and the already existing pool of people that were looking to start an online business anyways, right? What they've realized is that SMMA is pretty much the only business model that can actually stand the test of time, that can actually stand the uncertainty of such a weird landscape right now. For example, we've seen it with dropshipping, it's on a downward spiral. And the reason why that is because Facebook ads is being very, very strict about what brands and companies it allows to advertise on their platform. And so any dropshipping brand is getting banned left and right. And it's actually made it quite hard to scale dropshipping businesses. Pretty much for the past 2 to 3 years, dropshipping had been the uncontested online business model that people were flocking into, right? Way above SMMA. But there seems to be a switch in the market nowadays. There's, a lot of people are realizing that SMMA is by far a business model that has longevity, right? A business model where you don't need a lot of upfront capital, right? They realize that also you don't need to be a master of many trades, right? So it's very friendly for beginner entrepreneurs who don't really know how to do branding or, logistics or marketing, right? So with SMMA, you only have to focus on one single aspect of a business, which is marketing, right? You only need to master one single service to be able to actually monetize that service very well, right? For example, if you start a social media marketing agency, and I could talk about this for hours, I've got a lot of trainings on my channel about how to actually do this, right? If you start a social media marketing agency, you're only focusing on one single service. It may be Facebook ads, it may be SEO, email marketing, right? But you don't have to master logistics, branding, coming up, product development, building a team, etc., etc. But obviously this new massive attention that SMMA is garnering really begs the question, is SMMA saturated? This is probably the #1 thing that prevents people from starting any thing in life, right? They think that too many people are doing it, or they think it's too saturated, or they think it's too late, right? Because let's be honest, we'd all love to be the first ones to walk into a gold mine, just mine all the gold, and while you're at it, just conquer the land, right? So what I want to do now in the video is actually dig deeper and see if it's really saturated and really test this hypothesis that SMMA is too saturated or that it's just too late, right? And by the way, I'm going to be completely unbiased because whether you get into SMMA or you don't, I appreciate you for watching this video and maybe supporting my content, but honestly, you do you. I just love creating this video. So with that being said, let's dig deeper into the idea of saturation. So the next part of the video is understanding the saturation illusion. The idea that I use to explain this is what I call the echo chamber effect. And what it means basically is, if you think about it, right, this is just life, right? And within life, there's a bunch of interests. For example, finance, right? We've got medicine. We've got law, being a lawyer. We've got, being a professional athlete, right? We've got being an athlete, okay? And the list goes on and on and on. There's obviously a ton of different interests that people have in the world, right? From engineers to accountants, and the list goes on, right? What you need to understand is that when you get into a specific space, for example, if you are a lawyer, right, you are going to surround yourself with like-minded people, lawyers in this case, right? If you're really into finance, you're going to be applying to Goldman Sachs, and you're going to be applying to internships in JP Morgan, and that's going to be your whole world, right? And the reason why that is because in our brain, right, we have this thing called the reticular activation system, and what it is basically your brain has selective focus, right? Your brain, and you included, would go absolutely crazy if you had to just focus on everything that is going around you, from the noise of the cars to, the snow falling outside, to essentially every little thing that is going around you, right? And that also applies for knowledge. If you had to be aware of everything that is happening in the world, right, from finance to lawyers, etc., then you would absolutely go crazy. That is why it's incredibly valuable as agency owners, right, to leverage the skills of other people who are already existing experts in their field. For example, if you start an agency, right, what you don't want to do is you don't want to go ahead and invest 2, 3 years, 4 years of your life becoming a Facebook ads expert when you can just leverage the people who their whole world is just Facebook ads, right? So getting back to my point, what happens when you enter an online business or a financial vehicle, right? Especially if there's quite a lot of buzz around it, if money can be made from it, right? You enter a very, very tight-knit community, right? You enter almost kind of like a cult. I would describe it as, right? So you enter the SMMA cult, right? Now, this SMA cult is actually, that's way too big, right? It's actually tiny compared to other big size cults. Like finance, for example, is a massive cult, right? Banking, finance, investment banking, all that stuff is massive cult. Medicine, massive cult, right? I'm using the word cult very lightly here, but essentially you guys get my point, right? SMMA is a tiny cult, especially because it's not been around for long, right? It's been around maybe since like 2015, 16, right? So it's a very small group of people that actually know about social media marketing, right? Now, that's the first thing that I want you to keep in mind. The fact that if you actually look at the grand scheme of things, right? If you actually look at the grand scheme of things, we are a tiny dot in the world, right? When it comes to interests, hobbies, careers, all that stuff, right? And we are a tiny dot in the universe, right? So that's the first thing that I want you to keep in mind. Now, let's just say that now, we're kind of like zooming in. I want you guys to imagine that we've zoomed in. Let's see if this works. So I want you guys to imagine that we've zoomed into SMMA, right? So we've zoomed into SMMA. Now, here's what happens when we do that, okay? When you get an online business, right, a financial vehicle where, again, money can be made, right? There are a lot of people that, get interested in that financial vehicle for probably the main, the wrong reasons. There's nothing wrong about making money, right? And about getting into a business model to make money, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. Money is not evil. Money is healthy. It is oxygen as a business owner, right? But it's not the whole thing, right? It's not the most important thing. For example, keeping your clients for a long time, keeping your clients satisfied is by far the most important thing, right? Because when you have that in place, then the money is no problem, right? The money is handled. But I digress. Essentially, when you have money in the way, right, and especially when people are posting about, videos, content on the specific subject, right, what happens is you get a lot of seekers, right? You get a lot of interest, right? You get a lot of tire kickers, right, who take interest in SMMA, right? And so this SMMA bubble, right, to kind of call it like that, this SMMA bubble is made up of all these people who have heard about SMMA, who have seen people make money, right? And now they've taken an interest. They've joined a free Facebook group, right? Or they've subbed to my YouTube channel, or they watch my TikTok videos, or whatever it is, right? They take a very slight interest, right? Yet they still make up the number that you see on a Facebook group. They still make up the number of people talking about SMMA, knowing about SMMA, which then tells, which is the number that gets people scared, right? When people say, oh, well, it's saturated, well, a part of it is because you're hearing all these people know about SMMA, but these people are not doing shit, right? They're not doing anything. They just maybe have subbed to my channel. They're not taking action. They're not investing into themselves. They're not really going forward with it. They just like the idea of it, right? Maybe they are being very passive about it. They're consuming a lot of knowledge on the subject, right? But they're never going to do anything, right? So that's the first thing that I want you to keep in mind. Now, out of those people that make up what the SMMA space is, right? Out of those people, there is going to be a percentage that are actually taking a step forward and are taking action, right? Now that percentage is obviously very, very slim. Okay, I'm just gonna delete this. That percentage is very slim compared to the whole of the SMMA space, okay? The space that actually makes the noise, right? The people that take the action are a very small percentage of people. Here's the little caveat, right? The amount of people taking action that don't have a clear plan of attack, that may have a clear plan of attack, but it's not the right plan of attack, is mind-boggling, okay? In fact, a lot of the mentees that come to me for my one-to-one mentorship, they had a plan of attack, but the plan of attack just didn't work because it wasn't the right plan of attack, right? You can have a map, but if it's not the right map to get you to your desired destination, or a map that is the most effective, most efficient map to get to your desired destination and not just a slow lane, then what's the point of that map, right? And so the amount of people that have a plan of attack that maybe have taken action, right, is a very small percentage of people, right? Now, out of the people that are taking action, the ones that do have a good plan of attack, very, very tiny percentage, okay? Very tiny percentage. I can tell you that from experience, from being in the space for a while now. The amount of people that actually know what they're doing, very tiny percentage of people, okay? And not only that, but the amount of people that actually know, that they have the right plan of attack, right? But they chip away every single day. They optimize according to feedback. They try to get better every single day, right? They try to level up every single day, right? And they really care about their clients. They really care about making this thing what it should be, which is an actual business, right? The amount of people that are actually doing that, I don't even think it will fit here. Probably around that, right? So when you actually look at this, right, and when you understand that there's this echo chamber effect, right, that almost makes you believe that there's a lot of saturation because there's a lot of noise, right? I'll give you that. There's a lot of noise around the SMMA space, but the amount of people that you'll be competing, if you have the right plan of attack, if you're serious about this, if you're actually taking action, it's not too many, right? When you get to this point, maybe you're competing against 5, 10 agencies, and we'll talk about why competition is actually for losers in just a bit. But when you get to this point, it's, you know, you're not worried about a saturation. I can show you that. You're worried about just slashing throats and being the best. You're in a mindset of inspiration rather than desperation. You're moving towards a big goal, right? Instead of running away from pain, which is not having money, which is what gets most people, at least for me, to start a business, right? For example, taking care of your family, whatever it is, right? So that is the saturation illusion, right? The myth, and that is how the echo chamber affects your perception of the real saturation that there is in a specific space, in this case the SMMA space. With that being said, let's get back into the video, but I would really appreciate it if you're enjoying this video so far, you go ahead and you make that gray, ugly looking like button turn blue. Helps out with the algorithm, the whole channel, and I would really appreciate it. This third part of the video is all about the barrier to entry Bliss, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a bit. But we've just taken a look at saturation. Now, technically, right, with saturation, it should be harder to succeed. But let's actually question that. With saturation, technically, there's more people fighting for the same attention. Technically, there's more people, very important word, right? Technically, there's more people fighting for the same clients. Now, since this client is now being approached, not by one agency, but maybe by 5 agencies, this client has now more options. And since it's become more competitive, these agencies have been forced to, be better, right? To have a more of an irresistible offer. And that technically, usually, right, it leads to cheaper prices. So this is great news for the client, and I'm happy about it, right? It's great for the space as well. Great news for the client. They have way more options, right? They have a much more experienced agency, and they're probably also getting this agency for a cheaper price than maybe in 2013, when there's only one single agency in the e-com space offering e-com growth using Facebook ads. Now, that is all technically supposed to happen, because going back to the premise of saturation and the echo chamber effect, right? There's a lot of people getting into the space who are looking at this thing, right? Who are seeing people make a lot of money, and they're getting into the space for the wrong reasons, mainly for the vanity reasons, which, by the way, there's no problem in getting into SMMA to make money. Anyone who tells you they're not interested in the money is probably lying to you, right? The main difference is the people who get into the space, and obviously they want to be profitable, right? They want to make a lot of money, but they also want to serve clients, which is the way it's supposed to be, right? And so a lot of people are getting into the space, and what I've found, and again, going back to the echo chamber effect, what I found is that as long as you give a shit right? As long as you care about your clients, as long as you put effort into your offer, into getting the best people in your team, as long as you actually care, right, you are going to be ahead of 99.99% of all agency owners getting into the SMMA space. And the great part about this is that this more intense competition, right, the more people in the space has actually created a higher barrier to entry. Now that's actually great because it turns off a lot of people from entering this space. And so what happens is, if you actually give a shit, right, if you care about your client experience, if you put together an incredible A team, right, if your service delivery is right, is incredible, right, if you have an automated sales funnel, if you know how to actually generate leads, right, if you know how to sign clients on a call, right, if you actually know how to run an agency, okay, what happens is, now this higher barrier to entry has prevented a lot of people from getting into the space. And so now you begin dominating this weak competition that you're going up against. And before you know it, you're at the top seeing bodies being washed up to the shore. The final point that I want to make is that if you take a look at historical data and you take a look at patterns for other business models and really other movements in history, if you look at patterns, you can see that SMMA is still at its infancy stage. And so what that means is that a lot of people are seeing this massive opportunity, right? A lot of people want to get into it, right? And a lot of people are getting into it thinking they're going to be the big shot, right? And so this infancy stage is very different to a maturity stage. When a business model is matured and it's in that maturity stage, the winners are already established, and that actually prevents a lot of people from trying to get into it because it's so hard to actually compete against them, right? It's so hard to break into the space because not only is there less unmet demand for a service like this, but if there is demand, then people go to the top dogs. And so it's very, very hard to actually break in and get your foot through the door. So my point is, if you actually look at patterns, SMMA is just getting started. And we've even seen it with e-commerce this past year, where people thought that it was a very established market. And I was definitely one of those people, right? Or even Bitcoin. And you think it's a mature business model, but then all of a sudden 2020 happens, which no one expected, right? And the market for e-commerce literally doubles in size and grows more in 6 months than it has in 10 years. And so keep that in mind and understand that SMMA is just getting started if you take a look at historical data and patterns. Now, the fourth part of the video is competition is for losers. Previously, I emphasized that technically we are competing for the same clients. And technically there's a bigger pool of agencies to choose from for clients, right? And that's gonna mean a drop in prices. In reality, that's actually not the case. And the reason why most people don't understand this is because most people do not understand how to approach competition and how to actually get rid of competition, so you're not even competing and you're just dominating your specific lane. Competition is for losers is a phrase coined by Peter Thiel, who's the founder of PayPal. There's also a really good book on a similar subject called Blue Ocean Strategies, this book right here. I recommend you pick it up if what I'm about to say actually resonates with you. Essentially what it means transferred to the SMMA landscape is that if you are to have success initially, what you don't want to do is do what most agencies do, which unfortunately is what most beginners do. They see the people that are crushing it in the space, the people that are making 20, 30, 50K a month, right? They see the top dogs and they try to emulate those agencies, right? What they don't realize is that those people that you see at the top already have the social proof, already have the authority, they're already established, they already have a bunch of clients under their belt, and they are in the chapter 20, and here's you in your chapter 1, trying to emulate what they're doing in their chapter 20. What you need to do instead is you need to pick one single lane, a lane that is not frequented, a lane that is not very popular, and you want to dominate that specific, very narrow lane. So for example, let's just say that you've been watching my YouTube videos, you are pumped about SMMA, and you clearly see that e-commerce is the way to go. Do you really want to start an e-commerce agency? Absolutely not, right? Why? Because if you're just starting out, if you're a beginner, what you want to do instead is you want to pick a sub niche within e-commerce. And the reason why you want to do that is because the e-commerce space, if you go for the e-commerce space, there's already e-commerce agencies that are well established, that already have a bunch of clients under their belt. Why would you go up against these people? Why would you do that, right? Instead, if you pick a sub niche, you can learn very quickly about that sub niche, right? You can tailor your messaging and your irresistible offer specific to that sub niche, which is just gonna cut through the clutter. You understand what the founders of the brands in that sub niche, like for example, tech, actually truly value, right? And not only that, but you can make yourself a name in the space, which means that growth is gonna be exponential, because how much easier is it to sign another tech client if you already have 1, 2, 3 tech clients under your belt? Obviously, there's no doubt that having an e-commerce client makes it easier to sign your next client, but we're talking about a 10x difference in terms of ease, right? And so it's very, very important that you pick your own lane and you understand that competition is for losers. Competition is not a thing that you should chase, right? And as entrepreneurs, we like to be very ambitious and we like to think we can just, slay the dragon, right? And conquer the world. But you need to be smart about how you approach things, right? I really don't care about your work ethic. I don't care if you're gonna put 12 hours a day. Essentially, the people at the top have way more leverage than you. For example, if you take a look at Bill Gates or Elon Musk, they could get more done in 1 minute than you could in a whole month, because they've got leverage, right? They could make a phone call and sign a $1 million deal, right? Whereas you may be sending 1,000 emails that month, right? And you may sign 3 clients that are worth, $2K a month, right? It's a complete different playing field, and you need to respect the concept of leverage. So the final point that I want to talk about is SMMA 2.0, essentially adapting to the current landscape, right? Because if you are to have any success with your social media marketing agency, that is essentially what you're going to have to do. I believe that SMMA, as people know it, I'm talking about mainly lead generation, so doing ads for local businesses, dentists, restaurants, clinics, right? Which is essentially how SMMA started, is on the down. And the reason why that is number one, taking a look at the current landscape. Most local businesses are not even in full capacity, right? So they don't really need more leads because they can't even fill up their venue because they're not being allowed to host 100% capacity, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing comes down to, number one, your results are not tangible, right? So when you're running ads for local businesses, which by the way, that's how I started in my agency journey. I was doing ads for gyms and health centers. When you're running ads for local businesses, you are optimizing for leads. Now, leads are not customers. Let's just say this is a cold prospect who's never heard about a company or a brand, right? This is a customer. A lead lies around here, right? A lead is interested in the service, right? But you cannot attach $1 to a lead. Sure, you can attach a value to a lead, but it makes things a bit murky because you're not putting money in the pocket of your client, which then leads to a problem of accountability for results, because you cannot say, hey, I made you this much money, right? Essentially, your value is not crystal clear for the client. And there's also a bunch of different reasons. For example, one of them being geographical limitations, right? And so if you're doing local businesses, usually you are limited to specific location. Maybe it is your own county, maybe it's your own state, maybe it's your own city, maybe it's your own town, right? But when it comes to e-commerce, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit, you have absolutely no geographical limitation, which opens up a lot of doors, especially in the current landscape, which is very weird because maybe a country is in complete lockdown, whereas maybe in Australia, they're completely fine and they're living a different life almost than people are in Western Europe. On the flip side, EMA is the new way. EMA stands for e-commerce marketing agency. It's a term that I've coined, and essentially what it is running ads for e-commerce businesses and growing them online. And the great thing about that is, obviously, again, there's so many reasons, and I've done plenty of videos on that, but the great thing about that is, number one, there's so many different services that you can go down, right? And so that actually essentially dilutes the competition, because you can pick email marketing. You can be the go-to email marketing agency for tech businesses, right? Or you can be the go-to SEO agency for SaaS companies, right? Or you could be the Facebook ads agencies for apparel and fashion brands, right? There's a wide range of different services that you can pick. There's also a wide range of different sub-niches that you can pick, which again dilutes competition, which again makes it easier to succeed in a time where SMA has more saturation, has more people entering the market who don't really know what they're doing, but we've already talked about that. And most importantly, you can pick your own lane so you can dominate it. And I think that is a really good way to wrap up the video, and really wraps up the whole idea of go ahead and understand that competition is for losers. Understand that a higher barrier to entry is great for people that actually care about business and care about their clients, right? And if you pick your own lane, if you pick your own sub niche, if you pick your irresistible offer that is completely different to what's out there in the market, you don't try to emulate the top dogs because you don't want to compete in those bloody oceans. You want to compete in a blue ocean, right? And then you dominate. You're going to be at the top, and you're going to see bodies just being washed up to the shore. And that is a very, very good position to be in once SMA actually matures and moves away from this infancy stage. So that is that for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a massive thumbs up, helps out with the algorithm, the whole channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Leave down below in the comments any questions you may have on this video, and I'll be sure to check those out. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, there's so much content coming out on SMA, EMA, and I'm talking about other really cool topics. Go ahead and do that right now. Hit the little bell icon so you never miss an update, and my next incredible video that's coming out, you're not gonna wanna miss that. It is a very important full free training that you're not gonna wanna miss out on. And if you haven't checked out my free Facebook Mastermind, it's an incredible community full of like-minded entrepreneurs looking to scale their agency, level up in life, and really just make 2021 their year. So if you want to be part of that incredible community, go ahead and check out the link in the description. Go ahead and apply, and if you're a good fit, we will let you in. And the final thing I promise, what I'd recommend you do right now is you go ahead and check out this video if you're interested to hear more about why EMA is the new way and why EMA is essentially SMA 2.0. So check that out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.